Please like, comment, and subscribe.
Hello, my name is Kjell from Oslo. I have a question about time. It's often said that we are part of time and also outside time. Is it so that time is connected to our story? So if we are very much identified with our story, we live in time. If we are less identified with our story, we live outside time, and we are more part of the creation and the whole universe and the unfolding of everything. Is that correct?
Space and time are not absolute. And it's actually the result of the projection from consciousness. So, to understand this, I need briefly to explain the relationship between consciousness and manifestation. Now, the purpose of all of this is for each and every one of us to experience the full extent of our own resistance, which is karma. And that is also how we grow past our resistance. And to do so, we need to have kind of specialized spaces where we can study exactly where we are in our development. So, what your consciousness is, that level of consciousness and that evolution, the point of evolution that you find yourself in, that creates coordinates. That becomes part of the type of the dimension that you experience. Because in reality, we all exist in a sea of oneness. Absolute nothing. There is no time, no space, no matter, no manifestation, no nothing. And this that we experience is a subjective filtering of that oneness through our own resistance. And when it's been filtered through our own level of resistance, this is what we're left with. And when many individuals, if we think of like, individual consciousness, when they find themselves in the approximately same level of evolution, they will find themselves to kind of vibrate the same things. They will mostly filter oneness in the same way. And they will therefore end up with the same end result. And that's why we get the impression of being in the same space, in the same dimension. But the dimension and the time and space in laws of nature are therefore part of the projection, and the projection is oneness being filtered through your own consciousness and resistance. So, therefore, laws of nature will change as your consciousness changes. When it comes to time, something that is interesting that many people have experienced is that time can change. And most people experience this, but don't really reflect. Now, since time is part of the projection, when you are in the collective reality, time will work a certain way. But have you noticed, for instance, if you're doing something that engages you fully, it could be a hobby, it could be spiritual work, it could be something that means a lot to you. You forget time and space. And you get a very different sense of time. And sometimes you can just do what you do, and you think maybe half an hour passed and it's been 5 hours. Or the opposite. And it's because time becomes part of the projection of that consciousness that you find yourself in. And the reason why this is happening is simply because when you are completely in your own space, you disconnect from the collective reality. And you become even more present to your subjective reality. So when you kind of create your own bubble and you kind of disconnect from the collective, time, space will operate differently. And this is why time in your space then will operate differently from the space around you. So it can also happen while kind of being in the world, but it is the result of you being completely in your own whatever it is. And for those of you who have this experience, you can all notice that it's only happened when you've been completely kind of in your own space. And this is how time works. When you kind of change the space, when you change the vibration, time also operates differently. And it means that in theory, you can move through time, you can move through space by being able to be in that individual bubble and being disconnected from the objective, collective world. This happens more often than you would think, but the variations are so slight that you don't really notice. Because in your mind, things are going on all the time. You're moving around, like it's up and down here and there, and like it's a melting pot of different information that constructs your reality. So you don't notice these slight changes because you will have a watch and you will have, this sense of collective time that you refer to. But without that, you would feel that your time was moving fast, then slow, doing this, doing that. It's not consistent. Now, when you look at different spiritual traditions, what I've often said is that the reason why some of them have been able to do things that seem to be suspending natural law is simply that they go into a consciousness and are able to disconnect from the collective consciousness and thereby activating different variations of physical laws. So it means that like time, space, and all of that operates differently. So it doesn't mean that they're breaking natural law or suspending it. It simply means that the variation of natural law appears differently through their projection. And therefore they're able to, do things that from this collective perspective looks very much like kind of magic. It's not, it's natural law, just different. So it's all a matter of being able to control that mind and that subjective reality. And in many traditions, this has been part of the training, to be able to disconnect from the world completely, because that's been part of the discipline and kind of showing that you control your own mind, that you're not a product of your surroundings, but that you're able to be in alignment, because when you are, why would the collective natural laws apply to you? So that's been the purpose of these practices. And through training then, you've been able to move into a space where natural law works differently as a way to kind of demonstrate and incarnate that you are in alignment. So many of you have had these experiences with time. Many of you will also have had experiences with different laws of nature operating differently, but you haven't really reflected around it because we all refer to the collective template. But you always experience variations, and as you move forward spiritually, as you expand and you get more into alignment, many of you will experience greater variations in natural law, and many of you have already done that. But this is the explanation for it. It's completely natural. And it also can go to that point where you become more interdimensional, where manifestations and experiences that do not belong to this collective dimension become just part of natural life. And you experience things that are not visible to other people, and you can do things that are not normal to other people, but it's simply because you then have moved into a variation of consciousness that goes beyond the collective. And again, when you understand the natural law is actually part of the collective projection, you cannot separate the experience from the one experiencing it, because it's really happening inside of us. It's really just a way to process our own resistance. So when that changes, the projection changes. It's that simple. So play with it. See if you can make it happen, just for fun. You know, it happens naturally, but it's also interesting to experiment with this as a way to see if we're able to be in that complete individual alignment. Time is one of the things that it's easy to notice. But you will be able to notice it with other things as well. So it's not magical. It's not suspension of natural law. It's completely natural. And to me, this is just part of how physics work.